Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Ancient Futures Now. I'm so amazingly grateful to be with Lo, the founder and the lead instructor of the Programmers Guild. And today we're going to be talking about this amazing Programmers Guild, a guild that is educating young folks on programming, and not just doing that, but is, as we're going to talk about today, reviving a very beautiful and powerful form of coming together and building education, developing labor, developing the youth. So we're going to get very, very deep today. I'm very excited. But Lo, let me just hear a little bit of how you're doing today. How does this moment find you?
I'm good. I'm well. I can't complain too much at all. Not today, I can't anyway.
Nice.
Give me another week. There'll be something else going on.
Nice, nice.
I'm good though.
And I would love to hear from you. What is it that inspired you to create the Programmers Guild? Like, what put this in your heart to say this is what you want to do?
So it's really personal. So I've always been a nerdy kid and tinkered with whatever was around the house, computers. Me and my brothers and cousins, taking electronics apart, just curious about what's inside.
Nice.
And we did that because there was nobody in our house who was an engineer, worked with computers. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I love to tell the story of that. For one of my birthdays, I think I was 5, I asked one of my grandmothers to give me a computer.
Nice.
She brought me an electric typewriter. Like, that's the history of tech in my house.
Wow.
The adults had their own professions, but none of them were in technology. Mm-hmm. So for me, nobody was around me to introduce me to this stuff. Mm-hmm. So part of the reason I'm doing it now is because that's frighteningly still true today in a world with as much technology as we use.
Yeah.
And communities like mine don't get the technology, we don't get the training, and therefore we don't participate in AI.
Nice.
Therefore we don't participate in the economy on those ends. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole reason to do a program.
Beautiful.
We need this.
And what's amazing about what you're doing and what you're saying is that we all have these phones.
All
but
of us.
How many of us know how they work and how to, as you said, participate in the economy and participate really in the future that is being shaped, through technology. So it's really, really cool that you're particularly bringing, our people in and giving them access. So.
I'm one of the people doing it, for sure, yeah.
And so we were just talking about this a little bit, but I'd love to dive in because this is the thing that we're very passionate about on this podcast is guilds, right?
Guild?
And the idea of a guild, right? So guild, no, I'm trying to do less of that. No. Guilds with a D for sure. And I would love to hear, what does that word mean to you? What inspired you to think of it, call it, organize it as a guild? And then I would love to just kind of nerd out on that a little bit with you.
All right. So long story short, I named a guild because craftsmanship is a big deal to me in my job. When I was learning the program, a lot of it was self-taught early on until I decided to come into it as a professional. And a big part of learning from other professionals in today's climate is that they're not really into teaching. So you imagine the guild has a master and an apprentice, and that master is a master at their craft, and they're teaching the apprentice. I didn't have that experience at all. And yet when I work, the importance of craftsmanship to building software is actually quite important. We think of it as a technology, but it's much more of an art. So that's why I named it that. It's very intentional. You're here to learn the craft. Right? Not just the tools, not just the languages, the craft.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what I love about what you're sharing too is that, which is such an ancient form of education, right? The master-apprentice relationship. And, if we look into the history of guilds, there's other layers too. There's the journeymen and the adept. And
exactly.
These, we were just talking about this and you seem to have some understanding of this history. But I was talking about how, up until the end of World War I, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, that region, which was basically from Spain to China, right? And it spanned that entire time. And at times up to 90% of society were in guilds.
I believe
90%, not just, the young people were in guilds, women were in guilds. That's how society was organized. In the place of every corporation and every monopoly
was a guild.
Was a guild. And every person is an entrepreneur. They're doing their own thing.
Right.
But they're a part of a community, a collective, right? And there's eldership, there's, that journey, and what I would love to hear for you, and, I'm sure there's the craft that is being taught, but there's probably more being taught. Because a lot of times in a guild, it's where you're getting initiated into manhood or womanhood. It's where you are, getting a role model. So what else besides programming
Really,
people
all the
learn
things you're
here?
naming, right? So when we talk about guilds, everything you said, that exactly that. So there's this sort of explicit training. You come to Programmers Guild because you want to learn to program. You want to learn the craft of programming.
Yeah.
So you have to have the tools, you learn the language. Those are all sort of the explicit things you're there to learn. But there's also the implicit lessons. By being there under the tutelage of a master,
Right.
you're getting that role model, you're getting that experience of working with another professional. You're seeing how it's done. You're learning what you're going to look like when you're good at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's all of those things, to be honest. Craftsmanship is not just sort of the thing, right? The programming. It's being mentored.
Yeah.
It's just being shown that there is a way to do this,
Yeah.
and watching a master do the thing that they do.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so key. And I have the rare experience of having had elders and having had people who've taught me, and I know what you mean, like here in my gut, and how I wouldn't be who I am without those
Same
people.
for me.
And it's such a rarity, as you say, and y'all like probably catching the vibe from this brother right here, but like you walk into the space, it's beautiful, it's very clean, well put together. You cut some B-rolls about that right now, and you got the logo. It's like it's beautiful, and I love of how you're really. It's a swag, right? And it's like I think it's inspiring, right? People think of coding and they don't like this is a really cool place. Like this is cool. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you're also making it cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm trying. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's working. It's working. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is how this is so different from the traditional way that people learn, which is going to university, right? And the statistics on student debt. The statistics on like the actual value, the market value of a degree today, right? Where so many roles are in technology, so many of our jobs, especially in this country, right? And so much of that is going to be AI kind of taken by AI, right? And so I would love to hear from you, like, how do you see this contrasting with the traditional education journey that people are going on?
So that's a really good question. Personally, so again, so much of this really is personal for me. It's coming out of my experience as a youth. I actually went to a vocational high school.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was growing up.
Shout them out. Who was it?
CVS. I think these days they're called CVCA, so I'm a Chicago native.
Okay.
So Chicago Vocational High School.
Nice.
These days I think they call themselves an academy, but it's the same thing. And vocational schools teach exactly what we're talking about. Skills, professional skills. It's not just geometry and literature. So that high school had some computer labs. They didn't teach programming, but they did teach you how to use computer. They taught you computer-aided drafting, like CAD. They taught you how to build cars, actual crafts. So everybody that graduated, the expectation was you didn't have to go to college. You didn't have to choose a traditional option. You can go straight to building your own business, straight to working at the auto shop, straight to whatever it is you want to do. So I see Programmers Guild as filling a similar space. Obviously, we're not a high school, but if you want to be a professional programmer, it shouldn't be required of you to spend $100,000 to spend 4 years of your life slaving away.
I mean, does that even in the industry, like I've never heard of someone, like I know a lot of people who work in tech, like they care about experience.
They do care about that. Now, there are a lot of people who study computer science in the industry. It's not to discount the value of computer science. But we're talking craftsmanship, we're talking profession. To teach today's youth that in order to do this, you must go into debt. You must spend X amount of years doing a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with the craft you want to do. We got to move away from that.
Sounds like a scam to me.
Hey, I won't go there, but we have to teach those alternatives. That's the idea, right?
Especially when that's not an option for everybody.
And that's not an option for everybody.
It's not an option.
Exactly.
And it's definitely not a good option for a lot of people because you got a lot of bachelor's degree holders making, barely getting by. Right. And then we got brothers who are electricians making $250,000 a year.
Very good salaries for learning a craft.
Beautiful.
Very good salaries.
Like crafts that aren't really going to go away like that soon. I mean, maybe you could have a drone, but you got to have a human being.
Yeah, you're still going to have a human behind there,
right?
Right?
A lot of this stuff. So exactly.
And it's got to stay that way. So programming, I think, will eventually start to move exactly into the space we're talking about. the crafts that exist today are largely in the industry of construction.
Right.
So you just named one, like plumbing, electrician.
Yeah.
My dad's actually an elevator technician.
Okay.
Right. I talked to him a lot about what it means to be a journeyman, what it means to be an apprentice.
Wow.
Right. So this is all very grassroots for me.
Beautiful.
And just to make a place where people can come who maybe they're not interested in college or
Wow. So this is a generational thing.
This is a generational thing.
Wow.
We want to do
beautiful.
this. This needs to be a thing that people think about when they say, oh, you know what? I want to do programming, but not in college. You know?
Yeah.
I want to do this for a year and just go to work.
Amazing.
That should be possible.
That is, I mean, I know many people who that's what they did. They took a boot camp and now they got a great job.
They got a great job.
So that's amazing. What's up, bro? How you doing, Adam?
Good.
We got a brother here in the space doing his thing. But you want to say what you were just saying?
Yeah, so Adam is playing a game, but a lot of the games we play in the workshop are really about teaching you the sort of smaller skills that you need as a programmer. So the game he's playing is for typing. Helps you become a better typer. We have games that help you be a better problem solver.
Okay.
And in fact, that's one of the training modes that I do here that's kind of unique to what we're doing, which is called no-code workshops.
Okay.
Learn the skills of programming without coding.
You don't need to learn a language.
You don't need to learn a language yet. That is a very significant tool. So I'm not saying that. But a lot of what's intimidating about this career field to people is they see the language.
Yeah.
And they're like, eh.
It literally looks like you're staring at the Matrix.
Yeah. It's like the Matrix or like French or German. They're like, I don't think I can learn that. They just don't believe they can.
Right.
So showing them that the actual skills are not that. That's a tool. You can learn the tool, but the most important thing are the skills.
And correct me if I'm wrong, more and more, the actual coding part is becoming less and less central because of AI, right?
Yeah.
It's really becoming like Squarespace at this point. You just drag and drop and build an app, right?
You know, yes, definitely for non-programmers. For programmers, AI is changing the game in ways I can't wait for.
Nice.
It's not there yet, but it will be quite soon. So yeah, eventually we're going to hand that tool off to an automated bot. They're just going to write the program we want, but we're going to tell it what to do. Right. So learning those skills is even more important. If you put too much emphasis on knowing the language, you're going to get left behind quite quick.
Yeah.
You have to know how to program.
How to program it. And I'm getting, you mentioned earlier, like this is not just, it's a craft, it's also an art.
Exactly.
Right? And so what do you think is important when it comes to a craft? And as a guild, someone who's running a guild, like thinking creatively, being able to like have a vision for what you're trying to make.
Right.
And then the execution is really like, that's where the skills are. But being able to have that vision, it feels like it's really important now,
You said it. So what we teach is that first you plan. So the no-code workshops is exactly that. What is the problem? And can you be creative with a solution, right? So a rule in here is all solutions are valid. If it works, it works. Don't worry about if it looks good or if somebody else did it, right? That's the skill. That's the craft. It's primarily problem solving.
Wow.
So when we talk about creativity, we try to bring art into the mix, try to bring music into the mix. We try to show people that it's not what you see on like the Hackers movie where, some dude in the hood sitting in a basement that knows the language so well. Right. He's like kung fu on
I'm in the mainframe.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep thinking of Wade from Kim Possible. I don't know what generation.
That's what a lot of people think of. Right.
Yeah.
Real talk. That's what a lot of people think of.
Yeah.
So yes, it's some of that. Absolutely. It's very cool. Yes, kung fu on the keyboard, all that. I'm a nerd. Love it. But that's not really the job, so to speak. Right. It's much more than that. It's definitely an art to me. It's an art.
Beautiful. And what I would love to do is I would love to see what your mind does with a couple of questions that I have, which is, first of all, if this model of guilds, like I would love to, like, what have you seen working with this? And one of the things that we want to do with this podcast is really inspire people to reorganize how they teach, reorganize how they organize their, the organization I run, Holistic Underground, we operate like a guild where we have all of these different, it's like a decentralized mode, right? But we share a brand, right? Which is what a lot of like, if you had a guild, call it the Sword Makers of Damascus, right? And so everybody knows like, oh yeah, Damascus swords, right? That's a thing. But it's not a brand like Apple, where like there's one CEO and he owns the whole thing, and Apple makes 80% of the profit and the employees split like 20 or whatever it is. A couple of beans, exactly. Not even sensu beans.
No, not even.
So what do you see as possible with this model of a guild, right? Of inspiring young entrepreneurs or even people who are in a career change, right? Because that's the other thing that's interesting about a degree is, right, you go and you spend X six figures in debt to get a degree, but I think the statistic is like people have like 3 career changes at least. Yeah. You know, by the time they're like 45 or something like that, it's like, I need to check that. I'll put it scrolling that exact stat, but I personally have changed careers like so many times.
I have too.
I've never used my degree. I have a bachelor's degree. I've used it this many times.
That's how it is.
Yeah. What do you feel like this technology, I think of it as like a social technology.
Okay, that's a fair way to think of it.
It's a way of organizing people to achieve an outcome, right? So what do you think this unlocks for us as people?
That's a good question. I think in this day and age, at this time, for me, the most relevant thing this model has to offer kind of goes to some of the things you were describing with sort of like having a brand and having multiple things under that brand, but not like sort of co-opted by an entity that is the thing. Is bringing humans to the fore, saying we do have this cool technology, we can build these cool things, and if you do it under the guild model, you never forget that it's there to serve the people.
Yes.
The models of education we have right now really put the tools and technology at the front. They say those are the most important things. The technology is moving, AI is coming, and that's the most important thing. And all the same, you got all the people saying, well, yeah, that's cool, but what about me? And in a guild model, you never forget the me. You never forget the person. It is about us, right? So I think that probably is the best thing, for me at least, that this model offers for my field. It puts the technology second.
Right.
It says we have this craft for these people to use for their purposes.
The tool is literally a means to an end.
The tool is literally a means
like
to an end.
Kind of the definition of a tool.
Definition of
irony.
a tool.
Yeah, the irony. Yeah.
Look at how we talk about AI.
Exactly.
Like,
it's the future. I mean, there are people who literally worship AI. Like,
they do.
Not even as a joke. Like, this is their religion. They're like, AI is coming. Like, I had a friend who had a friend who had a friend who had a friend, but I met that guy.
Yeah.
And he was a part of this like cult, singularity.
For
like,
AI?
They're basically like, AI is gonna come and it's gonna like tell us what to do, and it's going to help humanity. I mean, no, this is actually there's a guy who has a podcast called The Emerald. He has a really interesting episode. I would recommend you check it out. But he talks about how in our world today, in the absence of like spirituality and a foundation, so many of us are looking for meaning. And like, once upon a time, accountability and like came from like God, right? People are like, okay, there's God.
Right.
And God is like, gonna bring the justice and like, you know what I mean? Like there's a law and a set of things to do. And now people are like we're gonna create this AI and it's gonna be super powerful.
Yeah.
And it's gonna basically be the God that we, like the daddy in the sky that's gonna tell us how to live, right? And, saw the Matrix, like.
Yeah, literally.
It's so ironic.
Computer as God, right?
Right, yeah.
But you're right. That's kind of the spirit of the moment. And that's not good for us.
Yeah. And it excites me to have people from your community, from my community in the field. I think it's so essential and important.
You gotta have it.
Because like right now, the people who are building AI, right? Because AI is shaped by the people who create it.
It is.
Right? And so it's like there's a very specific culture, a very specific, unconscious biases that all go into it. So it's going to be really cool.
That's why it's an art.
So what I would love to continue is just this kind of what's possible conversation, because I would love to hear for you, like, biggest vision for Programmers Guild. Like, if all of the dreams were possible, where would this go?
So ideally, I would like to see this have, foremost, Programmers Guild belongs to the community where it's located. And I've actually talked to some peers and some friends about, hey, I wish there was a Programmers Guild in Atlanta. It's like, hey, if you want to do that, you should do that. And I think it's similar to the idea sort of you were sharing. I don't want to own any shops in Atlanta personally. I want to do this here for the people I know that live here.
Nice.
I want to see the people who come through here go on to get their jobs. Like, this is where I want to retire.
Nice.
So I think in the long term, I would love to see, programmers pick up their own chapter of Programmers Guild in their own city.
This is the right person to talk to.
And do it for their community. Don't do what we're doing in Oakland.
Yep.
Do what the people in Houston ask for.
Think global, act local.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But do it there. The guilds and I think this is true historically, belong to the place they are in.
They're literally most often named after the city.
They literally are. Yes, right? I know that. Yeah.
So it was like, this is our community. We're the ones who do this here.
Exactly.
Right. And we do it well.
We do it well.
And it's once upon a time, right? There wasn't Amazon, right? So you're not like getting everything from China.
Right.
When you go to the market to get your, whatever it is, your shoe, 90% of the time that shoe is from someone in your community.
Exactly.
Right? And that is not necessarily it's definitely not how the society and economy works. Now, it might not be that the solution is for like everyone to just make everything locally. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of benefit to that. But what we're talking about here is that even in like a kind of globalizing society, if we organize labor locally in a community model, that is really powerful. Right, so. That the person you work with and the person you learn with and the person you study with at the Programmers Guild,
right.
Similarly, like that's who I went to high school with.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then, our families know each other. You know what I mean? Our kids play together, whatever it is. And then we take projects on together. We have each other's back.
That's it.
That's another thing about guilds is like, there is a community investment.
It has to be. It has to be.
Exactly.
It's not a guild if it doesn't belong to that community.
You heard that, y'all? It's not a guild if it doesn't belong to the community. Truly, that's really the differentiator between a corporation and a monopoly, which literally do not care about the people by definition.
It's not their priority at all, by definition.
By definition. I have this joke that I say that corporations are kind of like, they're like these like evil dragons that are immortal.
Yeah.
Right? Because like most of the big corporations of today, maybe not most, but at least half of them, the people who created them are dead.
Oh, that's true.
Right, like Wells Fargo isn't around.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Very old head.
And so, but it's still alive, and it literally has rights like a person in our society, right?
Yeah,
and so it's like all of these people who work for Wells Fargo are kind of like controlled or under the spell, of this corporation. And it's like consume, grow. And interestingly enough, is even the CEO, if he was like, all right, we're going to stop being evil, he would go to jail. Because he's going against the shareholders' interests.
It's against the law, yeah.
So it's by definition not about the community. It's about the dinero, and the bottom line. And so this model of guilds, I'm just so excited that like it's not just a word. I was like, I wonder if I'm gonna come here. Like I had a feeling just from the email. I'm like, I bet you this is an actual guild. You know what I mean?
Actual guild.
Yeah,
right?
Man, this is amazing, brother.
If I can keep it's an actual guild, but that's exactly the difference I want to draw.
Yeah.
Right. People, you mentioned boot camps earlier. I went to boot camp. I've taught at boot camps over the past 11 years.
Wow.
Just like here and there. And their model, just like corporations, they are corporations often.
Yeah. Or at least for-profit businesses.
Exactly. Yeah. So rarely do you run into, actually, I can't even think of a nonprofit boot camp style organization. And the thing with those is you need those alternative places of learning. There's nothing wrong with the idea, but they don't prioritize the people.
Yeah.
They are not part of the communities they are in.
Nope.
Right?
So come in, pay me the money. If you learn,
then
good for you. And if not, sucks for you.
It sucks for you.
Yeah.
It sucks for you.
Yeah.
So the guild name is very intentional. That is the model I'm after. You come in as a novice, you leave as hopefully an apprentice, right?
Wow.
Or a journeyman. Some people I teach, they come in because they're working in the field, but maybe they just need to learn a new tool or a new skill.
Wow, okay.
But they're from here. I am from here. We are located here. We stay in touch. They tell me about their success.
Wow.
All right, it's a community thing. This is for them, right?
Wow.
So that's what we want.
And would you ever see like a future in which there's a project that comes in and like some of your ex-students, like they want to get together and work on that project together?
Yeah.
And do it under the Programmers Guild?
I try, as a matter of fact. Wow. So one of the programs that I've done historically, I haven't done at this location yet, because it's very hard to do, is to bring in those projects and bring that into part of their training as apprentices. But that's hard. That requires building partnerships, first of all, with whoever you're building the project with or for. Yeah. In most cases, those have been situations where maybe that group or organization was looking to bring on their own programmers and they knew me and they know I teach and they said, well, can they do this? So of course they can do that, right? They can do better than that.
Wow.
That's sort of how those things usually work. But I think that goes to the point of the guild too. That's kind of how those things work in a guild format.
Right.
They're very organic. It's
Exactly.
just a company.
You have a reputation. People know you.
People know me.
You're a master at your craft, right?
Exactly.
And so they know that you have a certain quality standard that anything you do is going to have, and you get to leverage that and extend that to your apprentices.
You got it.
And now they have access that they would not otherwise have. And you have capacity that you would not otherwise have.
You got it.
Right? And so now you can be like, I mean, this is actually how we operate. So like we will get a contract. It'll come in, it'll be like, this contract is for whatever, let's say $10,000, right? And I'll be like, cool, I'm gonna, y'all, they know me, they came for me.
Exactly, they know.
I'm gonna just be there at the couple meetings, I'm gonna oversee, I'm gonna advise. Y'all are gonna do most of the work. You guys get 80% of the money.
Exactly.
I take 20% for my role, and I do about 20% of the work, and that's our engagement.
And that's it. That's how it's supposed to
So
work.
if you heard that, y'all, if you need something built, you will have the touch of a master on it, but also have the capacity of an entire guild behind you. So holla at the Programmers Guild.
Yeah, that's important. That's the point, as a matter of fact.
Right.
That is the point.
Cool. Wow. So, okay. So we're painting this beautiful picture. There's a Programmers Guild in Atlanta. There's one in Houston. There's one here in Oakland.
That'd be crazy.
Right? I mean, it sounds like that's kind of
that's the dream.
The vision.
That's the dream.
That's the dream. And and so then what? Like what does that make possible? Let's say we had 25, right? We'll say we had 50 across the nation. There were these programmers guilds, and all these youth are going through, 10 years of that passes, and now we've got dozens of journeymen and a number of apprentices, and now journeymens are teaching, we've got, what does that unlock?
I mean, can't you imagine? That is very powerful for the community. So think about college. Let's go back to that example, the traditional sort of model.
Right.
What happens at least half the time is some kid goes off to college. Half the time it's where they live. Half the time it's not. They learn what they learn. They go out into the world. Half the time it's where they live. I would say more than half the time it's not.
Yep. Not anymore.
I think my generation was probably the first truly transplant generation where none of us live where we grew up. None of us work where we grew up. That's capital lost in that community.
For sure.
So when you have a guild model, when you say to people, especially that next generation, you can learn this craft here. And not only is this technology, right? So this is a unique thing about being a programmer, actually. You can work from anywhere in the world, but guess where your money lives?
Right here.
In your community. So that's keeping money in the community. That's keeping successful people in the community, keeping your best and brightest in the community.
Right.
Imagining 10 years of guild progress where the professionals and the experts live next door and you don't have to ask Jeff Bezos for anything that would be glorious. So it unlocks tremendous potential. Number one, keeps money in the community.
Yeah.
A lot of the reasons communities like Oakland struggle is because it's the same reason a lot of cities actually struggle right now. A lot of money goes into the online space and it never comes back.
Exactly.
Even cities who do their taxes well and sort of get those incomes off of every transaction online, it's not as good as having me pay rent here, go across the street and get a sandwich, go next door and get a haircut. All that money never left the city. So not only is that tax revenue, that's money in the pockets of the business proprietor across the street.
That part.
Money next door.
Right.
The money stays here. So I think the guild model unlocks a lot of community potential.
Circulation of the dollar.
Circulation of the dollar. But more than that, it incentivizes people to keep their talent at home. Not that they need to stay home. It's not about that. But it's about growing that social capital, that human capital, saying we do build things here. And I don't have to worry about leaving my family and going and hold 100K just to go build a life somewhere else, right? I can do this here, right? And I can do it in a way that is very prosperous for me.
It's very prosperous, and can do it from anywhere.
You can do it from anywhere, right?
So, and it's going to be the future of most people's, or at least half of America's jobs.
It's already here.
Exactly,
right? So
I don't know. Technology is what percentage of our economy? It's I think it's.
I mean, on the back end, it's all of it, right?
Right. Dang.
So
on the back end, it's all of it.
All of it.
Yeah. Every single company.
Every single thing.
Huge technology backing.
Everything.
Wow. That's true. Whether it's oil or Apple.
Or banking, right?
Yeah.
And it's not going anywhere. So it's more important than ever for people in Oakland to have some technical skill. Doesn't matter how you use it. To be in this world, and not be able to do anything with, your phone, your tablet, computer.
Even my grandma can use WhatsApp at this point. Like, she's all up in it. She's like international with it. She's like sending,
She's an elite grandmother, first of all. Because my grandma's down on nothing about nothing. And that's okay. They don't have to at their age for the most part. But we have to live and operate and change things in this world. And you can't do it if you don't know anything about technology. In fact, when you don't know anything about technology, you have to use it the way the companies tell you. I know countless people, and so do you, who they can't switch from Apple phone. They wouldn't even know how to get their stuff.
I noticed you had an Android.
Yeah.
So you probably running that thing, huh? It's customized.
It's customized. If you got an Android, you still have a little bit of a leg up, but you're kind of in a similar situation.
It's still a box, right?
Yeah. So that tech illiteracy is actually very damaging to the community in ways you can't even see. It's very insidious. You have a device, it does what you want, but that company can take it whenever they want. They can shut it off whenever they want.
And they're tracking everything.
And they track everything.
Profile and every psychological aspect of you, and they can manipulate the daylights out of you.
They can.
And they do,
And they do.
And they do. I mean, literally, like with the smartwatches, if it's all tied up, it's like they literally know how your heart rate responds.
They know.
And your blood pressure responds to certain stimuli.
And you think they're not building products that have nothing to do with you based on your data? Because they do.
Everything.
Because they do. But from a guild perspective, what that does is it encourages people to be tech literate.
Yeah.
So they know that this doesn't have to be this way, right? I can make changes. It's not hard, right? That's one of the things I think all of my students learn after they come out here. It's like, this ain't nothing like what I thought. Like, I know how to do this. I used to do this kind of thing here or that kind of thing there. And I can't believe I can use it here, right? So I think the impact could be far-reaching if this model succeeds as far as tech training. But
that's amazing.
I certainly wanted to.
And if those, I mean, I would call them heroes. People who are going to transform the way we do technology and help society develop a relationship with technology that is empowered, that is liberated, that is not, so much of us are addicted to these devices too, and it's because they're designed to be addicting, right? The people who are going to create an alternative to that, they're probably going to come out of a place like this.
Yeah, I hope so.
Because their value set, the skill set and the value set are aligned. Right?
Yeah.
And so right now, I mean, I've worked with, I won't say who, biggest technology companies ever, right? With like their top people, and coaching them, and they're in the Shark Tank, swimming in such a hostile environment.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel bad, honestly. I kind of feel bad for them. Like sometimes just the level of like stress and tension and like pressure that they're under to like perform. And I'm like, dang, like I would not want to ever work here. Like, I don't care how much they're paying you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's because they are not the priority. The technology has superseded the human.
By leaps and bounds.
By leaps and bounds.
And that person is not going to be they are not going to be like empowered in any way to be thinking about liberating the future, because they're already liberated themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
They're like, I'm just trying to get through the day. Like, you know what I mean?
So many people are, just trying to get through. Hold on one second. Adam, you doing all right over there? Okay, you good?
Yeah.
All right, whatever you run.
Silver medal or what?
Oh, yeah. We good.
I got one.
Okay.
So I'm about to do another one right now.
Nice.
You can do it, man. Yeah, that's cool. You do what you want to do, and if you're tired, you can go.
All right.
That's amazing.
He's amazing. He's amazing. So
I mean, he's y'all don't see, he's like checking on the camera, making sure everything. You're the best, bro. Appreciate you, man.
Curious young man, but very smart, hyper intelligent. That's going to be one of our next technologists.
Nice.
So we'll see.
We're talking about you over here, right? We need you to create the liberation technology of the future. It's all good. It's all good. No pressure though. All right. I want to, before we wrap up, I want to just go out on a limb here, and I want to just see what you think about a couple of ideas that I've been learning about. So I've been studying about guilds. I've been studying about, what we call the ancient futures paradigm. My teacher, he calls it the praxis of prosperity, and it's actually much more accurate to call it that.
Nice.
Of which guilds is one aspect of. So we talked about how we go into like human history and we look at all the most prosperous civilizations and societies throughout time. There was a set of things that they all did, right? And you can look at the Tang Dynasty in China, the Gupta period in India, ancient Egypt, the old ancient Egypt, the first part, right? All of the Ottoman Empire, the Christian guilds, the Children of Israel's guilds, like Native America, like this kind of model was all over.
All over.
There was also a certain kind of marketplace. I want to hear your thoughts about it. There were certain kinds of financing and there's certain kinds of currency. We might not get into those as much as it goes real deep there, but one of the things that was the parallel to the guild, right? So the guild was the labor organization format, right? But the markets were very, very interesting because in the absence of corporations, right? In the absence of monopolies, right? The market can look very different.
Right.
In most of these societies, the marketplace was actually not a Safeway or a Target or an Amazon. It was a commonly owned, it was called the commons, right? It was
I was about to say, it's literally the commons.
It was the commons, right? So it was, in Arabic we call it waqf, which means like, it's kind of like an endowment, right? So this is a space, a public space that no one can be barred from access to unless they're, breaking the law. Anyone can go, anyone can trade, anyone can sell, anyone can buy. And in that space, there's no tax. There's actually zero tax because, and I'll explain in a moment how my teacher taught me how the government made money if there was no tax. They made way more money, right? And it's by doing something called infrastructure as service.
Okay.
Where today, if you wanted to create a t-shirt, right, you would have to have a factory.
Yeah.
And you need millions of dollars.
That's expensive to have a factory.
It's millions of dollars. Or you're hand weaving the shirt, right? Or you're buying the shirt and screen printing it. But you're not really making the shirt.
No.
You're just printing on a shirt. Someone else made that shirt, right? So there's actually a place called I want to get the pronunciation right. I was practicing it. Yiwu in China, right? And so this is a place where they're actually doing this model where the factory is for rent. Anyone can rent a little part of the factory or rent the machinery for a certain number of hours or whatever it is. And the government makes the money from your rental, but they can get into business doing anything. Right? You don't need to have any kind of startup capital. You really need a couple $100 and you can start printing and get into it.
It's much easier when you have to buy the whole factory.
It's amazing, right? And that's really how monopolies operate, is they control the means of production.
Hey, the definition is in the name. It's called capitalism for a reason.
You need the capital.
You need the capital.
And if you don't have the capital, then isn't about you.
It ain't about you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Real talk though.
Right. So I'm curious, that was one big part of it. So they make a lot of money by offering infrastructure service, whether it's warehouses, whether it's the workshop where everything could be built. In the case of programming, perhaps it was the cloud, right? It was
exactly.
What do they call them? The big warehouses where all the
data centers.
Data centers, right? So that you want to create your own AI model, but I can't afford 17 Python G6
Nobody can.
graphics cards or whatever, so I can mine whatever.
Nobody can.
Right. So I can rent that now. Right. I can rent that and now I can do anything.
Now you can do anything.
So that's pretty much how markets worked. And the other thing that's interesting about it is that it was this thriving and flourishing place for art. Right, because everyone's gathering there, right, and it has that local aspect to it. And of course, we could make a digital version of this, but I'm just curious, from your experience being someone in a guild, right? Right now, the way that the economy works is the supermarket, Whole Foods makes 80% of the profit on the apple, the farmer gets 8%, and the transport gets 12%, right? I'm sure it's different because this is a service, and this is a question, right? It's a service.
The point stands.
Yeah, how does the guild interface with the current marketplace, and how would such a marketplace differ, and how would it affect and benefit the people who are doing the work?
So I think I have two answers for that, and I loved your phrase, infrastructure as a service. I don't know if you are familiar with it on the technology side. That's literally what we call it. So the data centers, it's a really interesting, ironic twist.
I'm sure that's why my sheikh calls it that.
It may be.
Because he's very tapped in. Yeah.
But they're referring to different things, and that's kind of where the ironic twist is. So infrastructure service and technology is used to rent out, for example, data center spaces. If you want to build an app and you want to offer services on that app to someone else, you would go to Amazon. Wix or, if you want to have an app online, right? It's like a website thing.
Okay.
You would go to Wix and you would buy one, or you would go to Google Play and you would put your app on there. And they call that infrastructure as service. This is basically the idea that you don't have to worry about owning the factory. We'll take care of that for you. Tell us what you're selling. We'll take our cut off the top for providing you the service, and you get to sell whatever you're selling. So it's a kind of almost fatal irony how capitalism is co-opting the idea of guilds, that you just described, right? But that's kind of what's insidious about it in this space.
Yes.
You don't know it, you don't see it. Those conversations are not being had by people who use technology. They're being had by people who own technology. Right? So as far as using infrastructure, first of all, there is a wide world of possibility for making that something that's good for us and not just for, factory owners, to put it the way you did. But we're in a very dangerous situation with it because infrastructure as a service, as far as Programmers Guild and technology goes, we're in a really dangerous space where a couple of companies own all the infrastructure.
Everything. Amazon Web Services. Like entire countries are on their cloud.
Entire countries. And so I'm not sure how that's going to shake out.
And not to mention like just the tech giants, like the whole Twitter situation, right? Where it was like, okay, Twitter is a corporation and everything's about money, and the FBI and the CIA are like, cool, we'll pay you to kind of spin this way and not show this and not show this. And so then you got another billionaire who's like, well, I'm going to come and save the day and I'm going to buy it, right? But then his biases and his whole thing is like now shaping it. And what if it was a guild?
And that's the situation guilds are in, though. Like, this is the world I'm operating in as a guild. If I want to host my services, I can do them in-house. What would that take? And for a lot of my services, I do. I know this stuff, so it is cheap for me. Just buy a machine and you hook it up to the internet and it's over. That's all. I don't have to pay Amazon a thing. That would be sort of...
But if you had a SaaS company of a huge scale.
Like the ideal solution for me, from a guild perspective, is that people know enough about their technology to control the technology in their space. There should be no reason anyone in this room must pay Amazon Web Services for something. Because the technology is so simple, it is so cheap, it is so trivial. The fees they're charging probably are reasonable for what they pay to own the capital, but it is not reasonable for the service I as an individual want from them. The service I want can be had on that machine for $119. Not a year.
Right there?
Not per year, not per month.
Period. Wow.
And until that machine breaks,
it could be 15 years.
It could be 15 years. All my services will continue to work just fine. So I'm not suggesting that that's the way forward. My point is, when we talk about guilds operating in this world and what's the place, we're kind of fighting an uphill battle with infrastructure. Because we are consumers. We don't own it. The government doesn't own it either.
So that's the thing that Sheikh Omar Vadio, who's my teacher, I want to just shout him out, talks about, is how all of these pieces come together.
They come together.
The guilds are for us and how we organize, but the marketplace is also essential for the liberation, because we need to, if there was a California data center that as a California citizen, you just have access to, and it costs you parking, it's okay, it's a couple bucks
it should,
what it really costs, right? And they could still, the government can make money, right? They can make a lot of money. Amazon makes a lot of money off of that, right? But that money, instead of going to Amazon, is going to the state, which is then going to have to put it back into us. And now the deficit that we're in and all this debt can be paid off because infrastructure as service.
That's the dream.
Right? And it could be that for everything. It could be that for producing, imagine there was a car production, California car factory, right? And it's you can go build a car,
ideally,
or at least fix it. In theory, if you were a certified journeyman, or whatever, you've got all of your certifications. Because of course you can't access that workshop unless you've got
the certification,
the badge, the guild member's badge, right? So I'm so glad that I asked that question. You said you had two answers. You had the other one.
I kind of did both. So
okay, got
one
both.
was the sort of the actual infrastructure service from the technology angle. I actually did mention one of them. So the other is that, interestingly, so being inside of Oakstop as a startup, I can't buy a building in Oakland. Do you know how much buildings cost in Oakland?
I know, because I tried and saw that I'm not going to right now.
Exactly. And as a programmer, I've done well for myself over the years. So you would think someone in my position could afford it in this city, but that is not the case. So the question is, if I do want to start a business, what are you saying to me?
Infrastructure
Oakland?
service.
Yeah, infrastructure services. So what a place like this does is say, hey, you can just rent a piece of the factory, so to speak. So Programmers Guild couldn't exist without this very model, this infrastructure as service. We can't exist without it. And yet on the other side, increasingly the people don't own the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the friction in the battle.
Shout out Oakstop. Shout out Trevor.
Yeah.
thanks for holding it down. Man, this has been so much richer than I.
Add them into it.
You want to just roll in for a second, Jonas?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool.
I'm very tired.
I got you.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't want to put him on.
No pressure. No pressure.
I had school and stuff. I'm tired.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah,
Come on.
I'm gonna leave.
I'm gonna see you on Monday
I'm gonna see.
and get some rest.
I'm gonna definitely.
Definitely get some rest.
Yeah.
Be fresh on Monday, man.
All right. Okay.
Take care.
All right. See
see that. That's actually, perfect time to start. So, last question is, this is a personal question.
Go for it.
I hope you don't mind, but what have you been praying for in your life recently? What is it that you've been calling in just for yourself, for your work, for what you're doing?
Sponsors.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, honestly, everything we've been speaking to up until now. My dream with Programmers Guild is literally anybody living in Oakland can walk down the street, see the guild is open, walk in, say, oh, I want to learn that, and say, okay, see you Tuesday.
Wow.
That should be the process. And day to day, I try my best to run it that way.
Yeah.
What makes that possible is having sponsors, people who want to sponsor training programs. Because to offer training for free, especially for a place like this, where people can't afford anything, that's kind of crucial. So that's literally what I pray for every day is more sponsors.
Nice.
Because it's the only way I can offer free.
And what does that look like? What does it cost for someone to sponsor a training?
So up until now, I've kind of just let people do what they
Whatever
can.
level they can.
Yeah, whatever
Okay,
they
great.
can.
Yeah.
The thing is, traditionally, how businesses handle this, because I'm not the first nonprofit to try to do something like that. They'll usually get government programs to sponsor it. They'll get businesses to sponsor it. But like I said, with guilds, it's a little bit different because these belong to the people there. So they really work best when the people themselves decide, we want this to be here.
You want communities.
Yes, exactly. And we will sponsor this training. We want this in our hood, right? And so the best I can do right now is I make sure it's absolutely affordable. Like I said, I've done well for myself over a career. So I have sponsored many students over the past year. I'm happy to do it. I believe in what I'm doing. And it's worth it.
Yeah.
I love having my students call me, in a couple of years, like, can you recommend me for this job? Happily. That's the kind of thing I want to be doing in my life. So that's what I pray for every day, more sponsors.
Wow, beautiful.
That's what makes this possible.
This whole thing go.
Possible, yes.
Wow, amazing. I mean, I will share the word. You know what I mean?
Keep sharing what you
Would love
can.
to make a contribution myself. It's really amazing work that's being done here. And, the ideal situation, because how it was, is guilds would pay you to be there. Right? Like, the only employees in the society when guilds were at their height
Right there.
were the apprentices.
Exactly.
That was the only guaranteed out. Everyone else is an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
So, wouldn't it be amazing? So, so y'all heard it there. Sponsor a student or 10 or 100. Hit the guild up about projects that you're working on, and you could actually collaborate with the guild and be not only getting an incredible product, but also supporting the work that's being done.
Exactly.
Is there anything else we should know about where to reach you, how to find the Programmers Guild?
Yeah, sure. So we are downtown, 2323 Broadway. That's inside of Oakstop. You'll see our signs outside. Across the street from the YMCA, down the street from BART. We are right downtown.
Nice.
Social media at Pro Guild Oak.
Nice. At Pro Guild Oak. Lo.
Thank you, man.
What an absolute pleasure, man.
Hey, pleasure is
We just
mine.
met.
I know. I'm
But it's
loving
like-
this.
Yeah, man.
I want to hear more about what y'all doing too, actually, because it's fascinating with the whole guild angle. This is literally what I'm doing too.
I mean, I feel like I just discovered that we need to do.
I know.
So
We both did.
Exactly. So,
oh man, thank you so much.
yeah,
for
I'll be
reaching
back
out on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, you know where to find me. I'm here Monday through Thursday.
Nice.
That's when all training happens.
Cool.
All day for the most part.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll be back, man.
Come on in.
Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Ancient Futures. Now, you the best. He's the best. Let's change the world. Peace.